Okay, so in this video we're going to have a translation and a discussion of the Aeneid, Book 7, lines 45 through 58, in which now in Book 7, having in Book 6 visited his father in the underworld, Aeneas and his men have made landfall in Latium, Latium, and here we have a description of the king of Latium, Latinus. So let's go ahead and get started. So Rex Latinus, the king Latinus, Iam senior, modifying obviously with that IOR nominative, Latinus, now older, he, regebat, was ruling the fields, it's plural from Arvum Arvi, and the cities, and there of course the Placidas cities, the calm cities in a long peace. That phrase, longe in pace, tells you that there is great stability, promoting him as a good ruler, and the cities themselves as being called placid or calm indicates obviously the stability of a good ruler. That is our guy Latinus. Nevertheless, we receive this guy. It means more like we get information about him, we learn about this guy, but it says, we receive this guy, genitum, having been born, having been begotten from Faunus and from the Laurentian nymph Marica. And so these are your ablatives of source as to where he has come from. Those are his parents. And Picus, the father to Faunus. This is your dative of possession, and it usually either has a form of the verb to be, or in this case, it's applying it. And so we are being given his lineage, as it were, in that Faunus is Latinus' dad, and now Picus, the father for Faunus, que, and he brings back you as a parent, O Saturn. And so therefore, if we were to obviously build his family tree, and then we continue, however, let's finish with the line, you, still referring to O Saturn in the vocative, the final author of his blood, as in of his bloodline. And so it looks like it goes as the following. You've got good old Saturnus, as it were, and then of course the child or offspring begotten by Saturn is going to be good old Picus. Picus is now going to be given that of Faunus, and then we get obviously Latinus. And so he is of impeccable bloodline and impeccable family, as it were, as we can trace back his father, grandfather, and even then great-grandfather. We continue on. An impressive fellow, this Latinus, as it were. And so it continues on. A son. But here we are applying the word nulla to both, obviously, son, although it does not agree technically in case, number, and gender. It is implied, but nulla will obviously modify the proles, which is connected to filius by that que. And so it says, for this guy, meaning Latinus, there has been no son by fate of the gods, and there has been no masculine offspring. And so that's a major problem because obviously in the ancient world the singular most important thing to a man would be to have that male offspring to carry on that family genetics and that family tradition, etc. And so he doesn't have it, which is especially needed for him because he's the king and thus needs an heir. And so therefore, no son, no masculine offspring, and rising up in first youth, so apparently he did have one, that male offspring, that masculine offspring, a repta est, has been ripped away. And so apparently in that first youth, in infancy, he did have a male son, but it died. He died, as it were. And so, sola filia, a daughter only a daughter, was preserving his house, as in his household, as in house that we think of when we talk about the House of Windsor, or the House of Hanover, as in Windsor, as in the family that is the royal family of the UK. That, I think, is what is being implied here. So a daughter only was preserving, was saving the house, as in the family, and the so great seats, i.e. the seats of power and the actual throne that inevitably Latinus would sit upon, both literal and the figurative one. She, that daughter, Yam Matura, now mature, not for a man, but more so, this is implied for a husband. The word weir can mean man as opposed to femina, and it also can mean husband here. And that's, I think, what's being implied. Now, or already mature for a husband, already marriageable with full years. And so therefore, she is in a position to where now she can get married off, and thereby, by association with the son-in-law, he could then, Latinus, have that heir, as it were. And remember, her name is Lavinia, and so we're going to learn about her a little bit in a couple of that lines. Many were seeking that gal, this daughter of Latinus, out of Great Latium, Que, and all Ausonia, total Ausonia. And who most especially, most handsome Turnus, seeks her before all others. And so it is Turnus that is most eager to marry her. And in the next installment, we'll see about this guy Turnus as to why he indeed is quality. And thus we see in these next lines how he is quality. He, Turnus, powerful because of from in his grandfather's Que, and in his great-grandfather. And this word right here, atavus, is where we get the English word atavistic, which is a term very often used in biology, as it were. Atavism is the property whereby in one's ancestors a certain quality had been present, but no longer it is. But when it all of a sudden shows up, then that is an experience or an example of atavism. Like when a human child, is born with a tail, that sort of stuff happens because our ancestors obviously had them. Nevertheless, Turnus, powerful with his grandfathers and in his great-grandfathers, whom as a son-in-law, the royal spouse, this is the Queen Amata, was rushing to be joined together. So therefore, whom as a son-in-law, she, the queen, the royal spouse, was rushing to be joined together in a miraculous love. And so therefore, the Queen Amata, Latinus' wife, is incredibly eager for this pairing between Turnus, who seems to have himself the right kind of bloodline, and the daughter, so that obviously that stable union can be made. Nevertheless, but the omens of the gods, the portents of the gods, and again, de aurum, a syncopation, stands in the way with various terrors. And so in other words, it's just not going to be in the cards because the gods are not wanting it to be that way. And we all know that this is going to be the source of the war that Aeneas is going to have to fight, because when he arrives and the suggestion of Lavinia, the daughter of Latinus, married to him, Turnus doesn't like that so much because he had been the person at first in line, and now Aeneas is quite unfairly jumping the line. So keep on studying and good luck. Latin out.